Well, hi and welcome, Vicky.
Thank you. Welcome, Kerry.
Oh, look, it was an amazing night we had together and with your group, with the volcano group, like Blue Volcano, and our solstice gathering was just it was different to
It
any
was
of the
different.
others.
It was different.
Yeah.
I certainly could say that. And I know someone who says they normally fall asleep in my meditations. They were very weak in
Yep.
this one. And I think it was because it was less a healing meditation and more an activation meditation. And I think we were very activated in that. So I agree it was different, but it was also magical from my perspective too.
Totally. And like I'm normally one of those ones that I do tend to get put to sleep, but I stayed awake the whole way through, and I had visions coming through, like most clarity I've seen in my visions before. So yeah, it was a great activation. What other word? Activation to who knows what, and I welcome it.
Yeah. Well, and we should be clear that we're still in the solstice energies as we're recording this. So it's Wednesday, 22nd of June. Now in Sydney, well, I'm in Sydney, and you're in the mid-north coast of Eastern Australia.
Yeah, so we're in our winter solstice.
Yes. So yeah, we are in the winter solstice currently. But there was what felt like a global activation last night too. So when we look at the planet as a collective, whether we're going into the brightest light, the expansion of the greatest light for the summer solstice, or we're going into the remembrance of the light when we go into our contraction and go within, then it's still a balance across the whole. And they really showed that to me with the crystalline grids of Gaia. Was just an activation all the way through them across the planet. So it goes to show whether we're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, we're really not separate. And, we hold the remembrance of the light while we're experiencing the winter solstice, and in the summer solstice, we get to express that light. And I think no matter where we are in the cycles of light and the cycles of Gaia and nature, we can be attuned and in alignment with them, which I think is wonderful. And that's what the solstice is all about.
And I think that's a great segue into who our guests are today, because while we're talking about balance, it's actually like we've almost got like the divine masculine and divine feminine coming together in this
very true
this play date, or this I'm starting to think I would like to call them gatherings, because
soul gatherings,
these gatherings. And I know you mentioned that the keepers of the keys are wanting to probably stand back a bit more and leave our main two guests to have some time with us.
Well, they're saying they're not standing back, more so as allowing others to come more to the forefront. So they will be still anchoring through, but they didn't want any questions to be asked of them. They're going to set up how today's format will be. And so that they may come in and out is what I'm getting the sense of. And so, yes, our guests are perfect representatives of divine feminine and masculine. We have Mary Magdalene wanting to come through, and we have Sananda wanting to come through. And this will be the first time I'm channeling Sananda in this form. So I'm kind of blown away and not sure what will come through. They did not want me to ask any questions. I wanted to leave the questions up to you. And it's interesting with the solstice energies, a lot of the energy of the divine feminine has been wanting to come through, but yes, in balance. And I think this is what's wonderful, because divine feminine holds the light. The divine masculine expresses that light, which, and so that's the perfect, when you think of it, the earth is the receptacle for the light, and, women are the receptacle for a man's seed, for example. Like you can see it all, in terms of divine feminine, masculine. But if we go even beyond biology and gender, we just see it as an inward focused energy being the divine feminine and an outward focused energy being the divine masculine. So the winter solstice is very yin because it's inward focused, and the summer solstice is very yang because it's outward focused. It's expressing that light. So yeah, we have a perfect complement then for today's Soul Sisters channeling.
And a few people are probably wondering who Sananda is, and they're about to find out. So
yes.
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah. What I will just say on that briefly, and we'll explain a bit more just as before he comes through. Is Sananda is the ascended version, if you will, of Yeshua. So and Sananda's energy, like I was just saying to you earlier, Kerry, first came to me in early 2020. And but I still kind of differentiated between the Sananda energy and the Yeshua energy. And I was still working with the Yeshua energy, as in the master that we knew who walked on this planet. And it wasn't until earlier this year, I believe, that he told me to stop calling him Yeshua and to call him Sananda. So there was no more distinction between Yeshua and Sananda. It's like, well, that is now his true form, his ascended name. Some refer him to as the cosmic Christ, others as the planetary Christ, and Maitreya being the cosmic Christ. Both are connected, of course, to that Christ consciousness, and are here to serve in raising that Christ consciousness and the consciousness of love here on the planet. And of course, Mary Magdalene being the divine feminine counterpart, the twin flame of Yeshua. But if you want to understand that her ascended name, many people associate with Lady Nada. And we'll talk a bit more about that before we introduce her. But they're very connected and a perfect complement to each other. And I still feel a little bit not quite overwhelmed. It's more beyond honored, but I know that again, it's not necessarily about me. It's about the messages that they want to transmit and share.
And for me, I'm sort of getting a sense that it's almost like a plan is coming together from before we were born in our soul's plans and things like that. So this is like a major piece of the puzzle for many of us.
Oh, yeah. And I have really felt that with Mary Magdalene. I think I've channeled her more and have connected more with her energies. And I have to say, it's always felt like that, like there is a divine plan. And it's like, and this is my suspicion. I've never kind of checked in with them about it. It's like Mary Magdalene still has a role to play on this planet because her work was not allowed for 2,000 years. And so there are still Mary Magdalene initiations and activations occurring. And for me, that was occurring in 2019 before Sananda came through to me. And it's why she is happy to be called upon as Mary Magdalene and not just as Lady Nada. Lady Nada is the whole. Mary Magdalene it feels like it's the note that she brings through from the whole. And so I think, and I don't know if I'm accurately describing that, but that's the analogy that I'm getting. I think there's still more for her. Not necessarily to do, but to unfold in her energy and the gifts that she gave to us as a collective. And now that's why her consciousness is arising again on the planet, because the divine feminine is needing to rise.
And we had her visit with us on the 22nd of the 2nd, 22.
That's right.
And she, if anyone's watching now, please go back and watch that introduction there, because there's just so much juicy stuff in what she was saying then.
Yes.
And I actually am hoping to piggyback on some of the comments that she, or that, you know, the energy you interpret of hers.
Oh, yes.
For clarity, because it was just mind blowing. So
interesting.
Who knows where we'll go today.
I was just thinking I should go back and rewatch that, because I can't remember everything. I can't actually remember hardly anything that came through from that. And I was like, I'd be good to rewatch that before, but I haven't. So we're just going to go into it. And in some ways that's probably good, because it's just the pure channeling of what's coming through. So there's no like prior expectations in that sense. Okay, so I'm just going to get a sip of water and then I'll bring through the keepers. Oh, yes, there is a divine plan, dear one. There is.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
And more of it is being revealed. So we are happy here as the Keepers of the Keys to guide you on this. We wouldn't even call it a new format, it's just an evolution of what is coming through. And you will notice that there will be continual evolutions. And it's not to say that we are here to, you know, necessarily mix things up for you, because consistency is also good. But we would like to show you that change is also good. It is not something that you need to avoid. It is something that will continue to help you to move forward and evolve through your soul's path, through your own divine plan, your own divine blueprint. And Vicky knows, for we have told her and we have shown her that these conversations are certainly part of her divine blueprint, as they are for you, dear one. And so when we see this evolution, there has been a plan from the beginning about who comes through, which one of your guests, so to speak. And yes, it is a gathering. It is a gathering. And when we say it is a gathering, there has been a gathering through Vicky, because it is who is connected with Vicky in who she can channel and bring through. And these gatherings have been occurring for a number of years as she attunes to the energy signature of each divine being. And so therefore, as she has done this over years, you now get to receive the gifts, and she gets to share these gifts with a broader audience. And so this is the sacred, we don't like to say contract, covenant that she's fulfilling and you're fulfilling, and being here and supporting her in doing this and holding space for this, so that then we, the broader we of the divine, can come through to share our transmissions, our energy, and our messages to all of you.
Lovely. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I can't believe this is number 6 in our series for this year. Like, just the year is flying.
It is, as it always will. But yes, the energy becomes faster and faster, and so that is a part of it too. And let us say, while Vicky has not yet uploaded her episode 5, and there is a reason for that, it does not matter, because the energy moves forward. And whenever anyone comes to these soul sisters channeling, to these conversations, will be a perfect time for them. There will always be those nuggets that they find in that perfect moment of synchronicity for them, and will see what they need to receive at each moment. And so while we did not wish questions to be asked of us, we have certainly had an abundance of opportunities of that, and will continue to have an abundance of opportunities for that. Each guest, as you would say, each divine being, has been coming through one by one, a new one each time, so that while they are connected with Vicky, she becomes even more attuned to their energy, and you all with them too. So you receive an introductory attunement to them. And then they will begin, as we are experiencing, as you'll experience today. You may think of it as a recycling, but it's a cycle back of those who have appeared before. And that is the case today with Mary Magdalene. And so in this case, now we are able to, given that you're beginning to cycle back with return guests, so to speak, we are able to step back, acknowledge that today is solstice, and yesterday is solstice. You are still within the solstice energies. And it is a perfect time to honor the divine feminine in complement to the divine masculine. And what we wish to say, for some confuse the issue by saying that in the rising of the divine feminine, it means that there is any diminishing of the divine masculine. That can never be. It is more a recorrecting of the imbalance where there was the suppression of the divine feminine.
Yeah.
So the rising of the divine feminine means that no longer will they be suppressed. And so you see this mirrored in the human experience of women or people being identifying as women, having their energy suppressed, their rights suppressed. And that is still playing to this day. The rights are still not equal. And this is a great correction in imbalance upon your planet. And not only is it only about what bodies you happen to inhabit in this lifetime, it is about the individual energies within every one of you. So are you more having to depend on the masculine energies of expression outwards? Most of you, yes, because you're having to work and be productive and do all that you can to earn your money and your livelihoods. And there is less acknowledgement and honoring of the divine feminine, which includes rest and retreat and reflection and silence and going within. So all of that is about coming back into balance. And let us say, when you see distorted ideas of masculinity, this is not what we refer to as the divine masculine, for that is not divine, but a distortion of it, and therefore far from divine. So the divine masculine benefits and the divine feminine rises and comes into equal balance and harmony with it. And that integration and balance point comes through the higher heart. And when you see that, this is the sacred marriage. And the Greek term that is within the Gnostic Gospels of the Hieros Gamos, that's, Vicky can say it in Greek. In English, you may say it, which is the anglicized version of trying to say the Greek words, is a hieros gamos. Now, regardless of how you say it, sacred marriage is one that you can remember. Sacred union or divine union is another one. Now, all of this is the joining together of two very different energies. But it's not that one is subsumed to the other. It is a true joining and a true honoring of the other. Not one better than the other. Not one less required or more beneficial than the other. And we would remind you, for you know, in having done the Integrating Human and Divine course with us, that is the two of the pillars of the Integrating Human and Divine process.
Wow, a lot to connect to there. And you can see it happening all around. It's these changes happening now with the rebalancing.
Yes. Yes, and the challenges are still ongoing. What we will say, there are those who have agreed to take on the warrior energy, the divine warrior, so that they can contribute to this rebalancing. There are many of you who are not so organized in doing that, but have done that in your personal lives. And we know that you are going through that process, D1, and Vicky has gone through that process by doing this in your personal relationships. And so all of this contributes to that. It may seem difficult. It is.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we know that power does not want to relinquish this easily. And we speak of human power in this case, which is different from divine power.
Yeah.
And those who have that human power do not wish to relinquish and will fight tooth and nail. And sometimes it is ugly in that fighting. So we speak of the sacred warrior, the divine warrior, because you may see it not necessarily as a battle, but let us look at the two divine feminine masculine counterparts of the divine warriors. You've got Archangel Michael and Pallas Athena. And do you necessarily see them raging in battle?
No.
You see them standing there in their full power.
Power, yeah.
And if they need to take action, they'll be purposeful and mindful and exact and precise.
And I'm seeing that personally for myself, is like you stand in your power, then a challenge presents itself and you get the wobbles.
Yes.
And then it's a matter of like, you know, do I fully implode or where do I go with that? And I think just the more we go through these challenges and the more that we focus on ourselves in standing in our own power, that those struggles become lesser a hurdle. The next time something similar comes along, you can recover and get back in your power so much faster and reclaim who you are.
Absolutely. And it is a reclamation of who you are, for ultimately the divine power is yours. Now, on a human level, you may have had to, and we say that purposely, had to give your power away in circumstances where you're not safe to express your full power. And often that occurs first within childhood, but then also through the patriarchal conditioning and structures of your societies. And through that process, for you to then reclaim your power, you are having to resurrect parts of yourself as you allow other parts of yourself to die.
Yeah, yeah.
Whoa, is that a process?
It sure is.
Yes. So today you have two divine guests who mastered themselves on the human plane, on the earth plane, in their respective divine feminine masculine energies. And let us be clear, it is not to say that Mary Magdalene or Lady Nada only expresses the divine feminine energy, for she would not be balanced within herself if she did not balance at all. And we would say, in fact, she was the master of this balance.
Nice.
She balanced all 6 pillars of the human and divine process. And so while they, as a pair, reflect this perfect balance, within them individually also is that perfect balance.
And I'm so glad that she's decided to stick around and keep supporting us as we go through that rebalancing. And
yes. Now, we will allow her to speak for the differentiation between the Mary Magdalene and the Lady Nada energies. As Vicky said, in terms of what she intimated and intuited, is that there is a divine purpose. What we will do is we will introduce her. We will step back. We'll allow Vicky to recalibrate to herself, bring Mary Magdalene energies through. And then when Mary Magdalene is complete in her transmission, we will come back through.
Okay.
And then we will introduce Sananda. There is so much love here for you that he is transmitting already.
You're going to make me cry already. Okay.
Vicky's holding them back too. Yes. Oh, yes, Vicky's holding them back too. So she's here. We're inhabiting her body, so to speak. Not fully. She could not hold 12 of us, even one of us, all at the same time. But her body is still registering the emotions of that. And that was a strong one. Yes. So we'll allow that energy to settle, because it'll come back stronger later on.
Okay.
We are holding space for all of you and supporting the energy of all of this to come through.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to even talk about that because it'll start me again. Okay, I'm ready. Mary Magdalene.
Some water.
I am pleased to be here.
We are so pleased that you are here with us in this moment. Thank you so much. I'm a little lost for words. I think the keepers of the keys have set us up for success. So I think
that was the purpose.
Yes, I think that the greatest place to start would be what both the keepers and Vicky were talking about in respect to your higher self or your ascended name of Lady Nada versus Mary Magdalene and the divine purpose through that. If you'd like to start there, maybe.
We may begin. Now, I'm checking what to reveal and what is ready to be revealed at this time.
Yes.
For I would not, nor would any other divine being, reveal to you that which you are not ready. And so we are collectively, checking all who receive this message. What the collective consciousness is ready for. And what Vicky can bring through at this time. in one moment in time at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, me as Mary Magdalene, there's still more to unfold. Does this mean that there will come a time that Vicky will channel me as Lady Nada? She will.
Okay.
She will. She did not know that.
Mm.
She will. Is her analogy of me as Mary Magdalene a note within Lady Nada? Let us say not a note, a harmonic within the broader symphony. And Vicky's not very good with the musical analogy because she's not a musician, but this is how we would, in the broader we, would describe this. For Mary Magdalene as the person that you, whether you directly experienced me or not, or connected with me is a better word and expression. My energies, whether in situ, in the time of Christ, or through the subsequent centuries in connecting with my energy. Now, there is still a purpose in that, for that energy, that expression of me at that time has not been fully expressed. Let us say I fully expressed them, the collective did not fully receive them.
Yes, yes. Mm.
And so the Mary Magdalene harmonic is still here to continue to express so that the collective can fully receive all that was held within the potentials of my expression. Now, it is not to say that the collective receives fully that which Sananda expresses Yeshua. For in the erasing of half the story, they erased half of his story too.
Yes.
Not just mine.
Mm-hmm.
So while his energy was fully expressed also, there will be an evolution over time, over the human collective. It will and may take eons for this to be fully received. And there'll be other masters who will return to support this. Now, well, does that mean that Sananda is returning or that I will return? No. We will support this from the other side of the veil.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of the work that we're doing. And it is why we choose human helpers such as yourselves to support us in doing this. And we are ever grateful for this, for while anyone can connect with us and receive messages from us, it is a matter of matching your frequency to be in the vibrational vicinity of us and to receive us. And yet in this way, there is a broader transmission and a broader access that is more readily available to more people. And so this is why we choose to come through as your divine guests in these soul gatherings.
Probably should be calling you divine partners, shouldn't we?
We are all co-creators.
Yeah.
In a divine partnership.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Your terms for us may evolve also. So while my messages in the previous transmission were more general we needed to begin more generally. Now we're going more specifically to who I am, to
Wonderful.
my nature. And you will find this with all of your divine guests.
Yeah.
So have I answered your question fully?
I believe so. And I think more layers of that will
Yes,
reveal as we go on through life and as we go on through this evolution of change. I mean, it's been 2,000 years since the last time you're on this planet physically.
Yes.
And it's taking us time to get to here. But what is time like?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got to play with that in my mind. Well, if it's taken us 2,000 years to get this far,
yes.
But I know time is speeding up, and I think that evolution is speeding up because there's more and more light surfacing here on planet Earth.
And remember that when more and more light surfaces, or more and more light is shone upon the surface, more and more darkness is revealed from the depths. And so while it may seem as if you are dealing with more and more darkness, it was always there, hidden in the shadows. And when the shadows can no longer hide, you then see this coming to the surface, and then you feel you may need to be dealing with more.
Yeah.
And that can seem difficult, dear ones.
Heavy.
Yes. Now, in this, you may even see it in our story through our time in our last incarnation. Our role, our mission was to bring through the light and to anchor the light and to anchor love into the earth, to anchor the Christ consciousness. And then what happened? The darkness revealed itself. And it revealed itself. Yes, it played a role in Yeshua's crucifixion, but then subsequently into his ascension. Yet what it transpired was, while it was a shifting of consciousness upon the planet, the consciousness that was there was one of empire.
Yeah.
The Roman Empire, then shifting into other empires. And you may see them now, you may call them democracies, and in some ways they are, but you still have an empirical way of thinking. And we use the term empirical in this way to denote that it is empire.
Okay.
So the empire of the United States, for example, you look at the Federation of Russia seeking to create an empire.
Yeah.
There is still this old way of thinking, an old consciousness that is still there. And empire is all about power, human power over others. And so you even saw this within the very church that purported to be spreading the word of Jesus. And some of the greatest human tragedies that occurred were perpetrated in the name of God and the name of Jesus. This is what blasphemy is.
Yeah.
So here you are upon the planet, moving away from domination over others. And yet those who dominate do not wish to give up their human power.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the keepers did set you up for success, and even discussing how the energy of the divine warrior can be utilized both personally and collectively. Now, it does not mean that everyone has this purpose or mission within their soul contract, within their divine blueprint. You will know if it's for you. Not only will it present itself to you, you will be inspired to it. And I want to be clear, and as we all do, that some have a purpose in dismantling the old. Others have a purpose in creating the new earth, which is essentially a returning to the consciousness of love, to the Christ consciousness here on this earth. And what is most common is that you'll find a mix of both. You will have seen, both of you, a needing to dismantle the old in your personal lives. And now, as you move into your spiritual business, your spiritual roles, you're here to create the new.
Yeah. Thank you. That makes so much sense. Yeah.
And so some will find their vocation and their mission in terms of their, whether it's a business or their professional lives or their advocacy work or volunteer work or whatever it may be, to continue in dismantling the old. This is the difference between you and them. Mm-hmm. It is not to say that you dismiss their work or diminish their work in any way, shape, or form, for all is necessary. And in many ways, you may support their work through A, acknowledgement of what they are doing, but B, energetically sending them love and support. For it, as you can attest to, even in your personal lives, how difficult that may be.
And it is, and it's like through the dismantling of the old in my personal life, it's kind of like it's opened up a gaping space within me that's it's like we're at that tipping point where it's ready to be filled up with, but you're not sure what's going to come that way. And for me, there's that little bit of frustration, but I can see there was still that last little bit to let go of, which I feel I'm going through now.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, and thank you. I'm looking forward to what's coming, and I just feel like I'm climbing out of an actual hole myself.
Yes.
And solstice is sort of also giving me that energy to say it's okay to stay within for a bit longer and just keep moving forward at your own pace. It's not a race.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that that's making sense to any of the listeners as well, if they've been going through personal stuff, because nearly everyone you talk to at the moment is going through not just your average challenges. There's been challenge after challenge around us. As I think, like you say, we're in that tipping point of the energy of the whole cosmos, with us in the center highlighted at the moment.
Yes. As Vicky explained last night before the meditation began, if you're experiencing the winter solstice, this is a contraction. If you're experiencing the summer solstice, this is an expansion. Both are necessary. Just as the breathing in is necessary, and so is the breathing out. So the contraction is necessary, dear ones. Before the contraction is the expansion. And when you move into the expansion and you are loving the alignment and the flow and all that comes with expansive energy, do not berate yourselves when the expansion ends and another contraction begins. For we know that the expansive energy feels delicious, dear ones. It's not because you have done anything wrong, but because you are moving through another release, another cycle of evolution within yourselves, within your own lives, within all that is unfolding for you. Without the contractions, you could not move into your expansion. So bless and thank the contractions. The bigger the contraction, the bigger the expansion.
Thank you, because it's like, and we think that we go through a dark night of the soul, that we just do it once and it's done. And I've since found out recently that is totally incorrect.
Yes.
And I look at, now while you were saying that, I was analysing it with us riding, like if we were surfers and we're riding a wave, and that's the joyful expansion. And then eventually that wave crashes down on us and you've got to swim back out.
Yes.
And go through that to get back and beat the waves crashing over you to get back out to that next beautiful wave. And it's all worth it. That swim to get back out to that next wave is worth it. So
what I will share on this is many of you will experience a protracted or a deep dark night. That is your primary dark night of the soul. So we want to be clear that we don't want people to think that they've gone through that and then that they will have to go through that again.
Yeah.
No. But can there be cycles where you move into that? That's exactly why we use the term contraction and expansion, because what is occurring is that you're releasing all that was dark and shadow within your own bodies, you're within your own consciousness. As it moves out, this was buried deep within. As it moves out, where does that darkness go? It's there for you to look at and to move through. It has to move out of your bodies and through your energy fields. You have to move through that process. So the other proviso is the deeper and darker your traumas and your woundings, the deeper that process will be in the release. So once you've gone through your primary dark night of the soul, and think of it as a spiral, and we know that you connect with the energy of the spiral.
Most definitely, yeah.
You go within and you go into the center, and then you start to come back out. It's still dark, even though you're coming out from the spiral to return to the light. And as you then come out back into the light, there's the expansion. You are now expanding into all the light that could not be shone in the places which was previously dark. In other words, you can now hold more light in your body and in your consciousness.
Oh, hang on. Plug my computer in. Let's get that sorted. So sorry.
Yes, human things to sort out.
That's it. And one thought she'd done it. All right, I will now not lose you.
Perfect. Do not want to lose you.
No. Oh.
Okay, breathe that out, dear one. And so once you've come back out into the light and now you can hold more light, well then we have to say, dear ones, and we speak collectively in this sense. Do not assume that once you have healed something, you have healed it forevermore.
There's layers.
Certainly. And so the cycles, you will then cycle back through that spiral. That is the contraction, then the expansion. So this is just a natural rhythm that you'll experience. Within these can be initiations and activations.
Yeah.
Certainly. And for you to hold those energies, you must release more. Your bodies hold so much.
They do, and like I've just had a major release in the last week, and I felt like there was still something residual there, and I actually booked myself in and went in and had a massage, which I haven't done in a long time.
Yes.
And just to have that human touch and that release, and it was called a Kuan Yin massage. I went, oh, this is perfectly what I need now.
Yes.
And it was so worth it. So it was sort of like another layer was released, and I walked out actually feeling like there was more movement within my actual physical body.
Yes. Yes.
So it was like I had the mental and emotional, more the emotional release, and then the bit more of the physical release.
Yes. And that is what occurs. That mental, emotional energy is stored in your bodies, and you can release it energetically, mentally, emotionally. Sometimes your bodies need support to release physically. So massage is a perfect way to do this, and any body work. Swimming in the ocean is another way to do this. Yeah. A sea salt bath, hydrating your bodies, moving your bodies, going for a walk, being in nature. All of these are wonderful ways to support your bodies to release physically.
And I've done all of those this week. I must have intuited well. I went down and I thought, I'm just going to go and lay on the beach for a few hours and bathe in the sun that's finally come out after 6 months of rain. But, once again, there's nature's balance as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I'm looking forward to some expansion, may I just say. Yeah.
And let us say, you mentioned the 6 months of rain. All your weather events are Gaia's attempt to return to balance.
Yeah.
And while Gaia is limitless, how human beings deplete her resources is out of balance of the natural cycle of nature. She blooms and blossoms and moves into abundance of her harvest cycles without end through the millennia, and can do so forevermore if you allow her. But when you strip her of her balance, then she will attempt to correct that.
Yeah. And I think she is a direct reflection of us.
Yes. A direct reflection of the human collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And the human consciousness moves into lack and scarcity, and so seeks to mine and take and exploit with abandon, so that it can have all that it can have in any given moment. That is not in the natural flow of things.
And I think nature itself gets taken for granted. Like, I don't think we really pay enough attention, like what a walk on the beach can do.
Yes.
Like just a walk out into the bush and just listen to the birds. Like, I don't think enough of us notice that, and I'm hoping that's what's part of our evolution, is more and more people are noticing that, oh, hey, when I do go out into nature, I just feel so much better myself. So why would I want to harm an environment that's supporting me?
Let me say that is certainly true. And when it comes to the spiritual awakening process, it was certainly true for Vicky. You live in a land in Australia that is richly diverse and abundant in flora and fauna. And the birds, how magnificent they are. And Vicky discovered species of birds and flowers and plants and trees she had never noticed before when she went through her spiritual awakening process. Now, it amazed her how she could have been blind to all of that before, but it is a blindness. She was asleep and then she became awake. That's the awakening. And so that is true also of many people on the planet, not only taking nature for granted, but not seeing its richness and its diversity and all the gifts it has to offer. And seeing it, sadly, as being primitive, wild, but needing to, not wild in the wondrous wildness, but in needing to be tamed. So you create cities and roads and buildings. It's not to say that you do not need structures for your homes and your businesses, but to see that one as civilized as one as not is the thinking which needs to be corrected.
Yeah, the old thinking, yeah.
Yes. And so you see this also in the direct reflection of how the collective consciousness relates to the divine feminine. Gaia is the embodiment of that here upon the planet. And how you treat her is just like how you treat your bodies, whether male or female, or non-binary, or transgender, or whatever it is. How you treat your bodies is reflected in how you treat the body of Gaia. And I'll take it one step further. And how you treat her is also a reflection and mirror of how you treat women in general. They're to be exploited. They're to be controlled and dominated.
Just triggering something in me. I took my cat out the backyard this week. I put her on a harness and I take her out onto the back grass with me. She just loves to get outside.
Yes.
The birds spot her and they go absolutely crazy. They take no notice of me, no notice of my dog, but you walk out there with the cat and she's just laying on the grass. She can't get away. And then next thing they're swooping her and they're all singing, warning, warning, warning. Now, I look at that and I think that's part of their DNA, because they didn't learn in their short lifetime that cats are dangerous and dogs aren't. Or even humans. Humans will fly from, but they won't warn like, oh, there's a human. It's like, there's a cat.
Yes.
So I look at that and I think that's part of our DNA that that they've carried through, to be wary from previous generations. And I feel that we have the same. We have that DNA of mistreatment of the planet.
Yes.
But I also realized then that, well, way back we honored the planet.
Yes.
So we still have a DNA connection to the planet that we can also rebirth back into our current time and balance out that. So balance is the key word of now, isn't it?
It is. And let me be clear on everything that you spoke to. Yes, the cat is the natural predator to the bird. And so therefore, through a process of evolution, that is wired into their DNA. And so they will do that. And the swooping is to scare the cat away from them. And the calling out is to warn other birds of the presence of the cat. Now, when it comes to your human evolution, you have spent more time honoring the earth than you have spent raping and pillaging her.
Yeah.
It has been the case, certainly in the last 2,000 years, but even beyond that, where the masculine energy of dominance, power, and control has come into play. And this is where the consciousness has been applied to the resources of the earth. Now, it is dominant at this time, yet it will be easier for some to return to the honoring of the earth. For some, we would say it is part of their DNA that you do so. And for them, it is incomprehensible how anyone can do anything else. When it comes to your industrial revolution, it's only the last 200-300 years that you have really exploited Gaia to the extent that you have, that it is completely out of balance with her flow of abundance and the inherent cycles within that. So it is possible to shift out of that. The difficulty is that these structures that support the exploiting of her oils, of all of that, and here you are in a global fuel crisis, and it cost Vicky more than $100 to fill her car the other day.
It cost me more than that.
She has a smaller car.
Yes.
Now, that was a record for her, so it was noteworthy for her. Now, here you are in that process, and yet the companies and the economies that support those companies are all about increasing profit, increasing the bottom line, increasing productivity. Now, all that is a masculine energy, increasing. Where's the natural flow and balance in that process? There is none.
And it's seen all around us too. We're looking at the cost of living's going through the roof, yet wages and that's not coming up to match it. It's that imbalance, I think, is going to force a tipping point.
There will be a tipping point. And it is not to say it'll be a negative one and there'll be a negative experience. What will occur is a greater
understanding of our environment.
That too, but Vicky's searching the words. A greater respect of your own resources. So this is the mirroring. You are expected to produce and produce and produce and produce and become ever more productive.
Yeah.
And to stay only in your masculine energies and therefore not rest. And ironically, when you can come into balance of rest and productivity, you are more productive in less time. And so this is that mirroring of that. And what will occur is that there is a revolution coming. Let us call it an evolution.
Yeah.
A revolution will come if governments, economies, companies do not listen to their workforce, do not respect human beings as human beings, not human doings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are companies out there doing that.
Yes.
And they are part of the change. And yet there are others that are not. And there are differences throughout your planet in terms of labor laws and workers' rights. And one of the supposed freest nations on the planet has one of the most restrictive labor laws. More people are enslaved to their work than anywhere else in the world, and that is in the United States of America. It is not to say that there isn't enslavement in other forms, in other places. There's still human trafficking, child trafficking. And we're talking about where people and women and children are exploited for their labor. Dubai is another one of those places. There are places all around the world. And the evolution is here and you are moving through it. The revolution may be more of an collective awakening, a tipping point moment, and that will depend on the collective consciousness at the time and how willing governments, corporations, and economies have evolved along with the workplace, with each and every one of you.
Seen a lot of changes with the working from home out of the COVID stuff. So that, I thought that was one big step forward. We could get a bit better work-life balance. So like there's change going on all around us.
There is, yes.
And probably the most change we've seen in a lot of years is in the last 2 probably.
Yes.
So
it was one of the biggest changes. Yeah. And there are still industries and job roles where who cannot work from home by definition. They need to be up. But that was an evolution of workplace arrangements. Yeah. And those companies and organizations that have evolved with it are allowing now more flexible working arrangements that they did not allow previously. Yeah. And it showed them now what was possible, which they did not allow previously. And this has been such a big shift in looking at that. For how many hours a week do you spend in your cars driving to and from work when that work could be easily done from home?
Yeah, and getting dressed up and all that. Like we only had to dress the top half working from home.
And on the other token, however, you saw this in Australia itself, but certainly it was a global issue. How often did women then have to bear the burden of childcare at home while working from home? So the solution did not all come all at once. And there's still discussions to be had around the evolution of your childcare. And let us not even call it childcare. Your child rearing, your child raising, your child fostering. We mean fostering of the child, not in the foster care system. Yeah. Allowing the child to thrive and be nurtured and nourished by a community of people around them, not just one sole caregiver who has the lion's share of burden of responsibilities while still trying to juggle everything that she is responsible for. Now, it is not to say that there are not men who are responsible, but the imbalance globally is vastly skewed to have women more responsible.
And it was hard too. Like I know with my kids, they'd come to the door and in here in the office and mum, blah, blah, blah. And I go, darling, I'm working at the moment. And it was hard for them to make that adjustment as well. Like, all right, mum's in work mode. Give me 5 and I'll come and talk to you about whatever it was. But so there was a bit of practicing and coming up with new arrangements in that with the kids being at home as well.
Of course.
But we worked it out in the end.
Yes.
But you brought up community there, and for me, like community is what I'm really I feel I'm craving mainly at the moment, like through all that process of us going through our own stuff over the last few years. For me in particular, my separation from my husband, leaving my place 1,000 kilometers away to come here to live, and all those changes. And I feel like I'm really missing that community, and I think that tracks back to the Essene's way of living that I know I loved, and I've been trying to emulate it for myself, like by doing some gardening in the morning and then this sort of stuff in the afternoon and that sort of thing, but I am missing that human connection.
Yes.
So how would you say we could all as people that are wanting to get back in that community, what would you suggest we could do to start bringing back that community vibe?
We all adore this question. And I did speak of community last time.
Yes.
And this is the greatest travesty that you experience here within your Western culture societies, particularly, is the lack of community. And you will see it as a hyper individual energy, a hyper focus on the individual person as a singular unit, where we do not see this as the Essenes. The unit was the whole.
Yeah.
It is not to say that the individual got lost within the whole. That is not what we are seeking and is saying. And you can see this sometimes in other cultures that are more communal cultures that seek the energy of the whole to be contributed to, but then lose the individual in the mix. So the socialization processes about losing the individual and what their wishes and desires are for the benefit of the whole. And yet that is defined by their elders, their leaders, but usually it's an old energy and not an older way of being. What I am speaking of is where you get to still be who you are as an individual and yet fully connected into community. So you both have your individual needs met and yet contribute to the whole. So all have their needs met. There is a symbiosis in this, and it is natural.
Yes.
And the flow is there, the balance and the harmony is there. Now, for some of you, first that can unfold in the online space, and you saw that through the COVID experience in the lockdowns. That was helping you to connect globally in the online space. Yet what many of you found is that you craved the interpersonal. That is also required. And yet many of you have found, as you said about the workplaces, that they do not do well in those public workspaces. Vicky's one of those. It was detrimental to her well-being, and it punished her in every way, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And so she could not return to a work environment. She has the privilege to not have to return to such a work environment. Not everyone has her degree of sensitivity, though. We will say that. But what I will say is that when you are able to identify first, who is going to be part of your community, then you can think about, how do I then build upon this? And we know there's something in the works between the two of you and a third to begin a small community, which will build over time. Vicky also has within her divine blueprint a calling to create an online spiritual community. Now, each of you may ask then, how can I find a community? How can I contribute to a community? Because whether it's Vicky creating it or you creating it or anybody else creating, when someone joins a community, there's a give and take in that. It's not the responsibility of just the one to create that. The community is a living, breathing organism in and of itself, and each must contribute to that. So what I would say, because this is where you have the overburdening of, like I said, skewed to women in child rearing, what you would call child rearing, raising of your children. When there would be, if there were a community, there would not be such a burden. The burden would be shared and therefore would not be a burden. It would be an honoring and a privilege to be able to shape the minds of this new generation. And let me say that some of these children who are coming through, they will show you the way in terms of A, how you care for the planet, how you care for each other, and C, how you create community. You will see it in your children. What you will also see is you being inspired by them in creating what they need, but also in what you need. Because as adults, you have forgotten what you needed. And you have moved away from all of that through what you see as burdens and responsibilities. And believe that you must do it all your own. And that you say it's not a race. I agree. And yet how many of you believe that it is a race and that there are special awards for those who get it done on their own? When there is not competition, this is something else that must go when it comes to building spiritual community. You do not compete with each other. It is all of mutual benefit. And the benefits may be different, but it's still mutual. So you're moving away from the energy of competition and competing against each other. Instead, you contribute to each other, uplift each other. So at the beginning, it'll be about discerning who is going to be part of that community for you.
And that makes a lot of sense to me, because I've actually been going out and just keep getting highlighted ads or things if someone's having a crystal sale or things like that. So I'm going, well, I'm just going to go along and meet this person and see who's in this district that I've moved into as well. And I'm just finding, wow, there's a bigger like-minded community in this area than what I realized. And by connecting to one, then I'm connecting to others that are, shall I say, more hidden, because they don't run businesses or whatever. But so I think in a sense I was out there like, I didn't want to visit them with the intention of, oh, what am I competing against? I was like, what I can connect with so we can all do something great together.
Exactly.
So that's obviously already I was starting to work on that community, and I just didn't see it that way.
Yes. And let me say, not everyone who defines themselves or describes themselves as spiritual is automatically not competitive. And so this is where your discernment will need to be at play.
And that was one question I actually did write down was, what is your term meaning of the word spiritual? Because there's a lot of different meanings and people may get it confused with religion and other things. So what would you say is the meaning of spiritual?
Well, let us connect to the root of the word. Spirit. To be of spirit. Simple. Because the spiritual has become a non-meaning word in many ways.
Yeah.
But if you go to the core essence of the word, it is to be of spirit. And I am not referring to spirit with a small s, but the spirit, the divine. That is synonymous. Your spirit is your higher self.
Yeah.
That is your spiritual self.
Mm.
And when you are being spiritual, you are connecting to that spirit, to your light, and to the divine.
So that's how I've always looked at, like, inspires to, like, if you look at the Latin or whatever it is,
yes.
that, you know, I'm not really good with Latin, Greek and all those things, but the root origin of the word inspire was to breathe in.
Yes.
So I always look at as the inspire, like it's to breathe in, it's to go within and look within oneself.
Yes. It is all there through the gateway of your heart. So if you go in, you connect to the all. So to be spiritual means you're connected to spirit. And being spiritual means that you're not defined by how you connect. That's the difference between being spiritual and religion. Religion will define for you how you must connect.
Yeah, yeah.
Spiritual does not. So notice that can be a very individual process.
Yes.
Who you connect with, how you connect, in what manner you connect is all your own. And you can be inspired by others. And yet you have the authority of your own spiritual connection to choose what to connect to be in resonance with something or not.
Yeah, head's going 100 miles an hour. Slow down. I just had a new meditation come to me. Okay. Yeah. There's going to be a gateway to the heart meditation coming out. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, let's have a look at what I actually did write down. So, what Yeshua and yourself and Mother Mary and all of the groups of the scenes accomplished 2,000 years ago, you sort of were tipping your hat back to that when we spoke in February about how that you're still feel so connected, and just like for us when we're been doing some project, we want to see how it's going to pan out and how it's going. So for you, looking at where we are now, I know we're talking linear, but where we are now, what changes are you actually seeing that's showing that the consciousness of love is becoming stronger and more evident?
That is a good question.
It's a big question. Like, there's many things, but probably what's your most favorite thing that you've noticed or seen yourself and the groups that oversee us?
A few things, and some will seem paradoxical. Women's voices are being raised, sometimes in righteous anger.
Yep.
And that may seem paradoxical to moving into the consciousness of love. But when you move out of that suppression of energy that is in powerlessness, you will necessarily move through anger to reclaim your power, to reclaim your voice, and to reclaim your light. So voice is a big marker of this, for you cannot reclaim your power without reclaiming your voice. And you cannot reclaim your voice without reclaiming your power. And for women, that is a big thing. For how often have women been silenced?
And
throughout the millennium. Yes. So that is one of those big things. And you have seen women's marches here and globally. The other thing is seeing climate marches as people stand up in their power and utilize their voice to speak for Gaia. And this is a shift, not only in consciousness, but in directions on the planet. In Australia, you recently voted out a government that did not respect the climate. And that was through what people were calling, and we're seeing the color, a teal wave of women. Women who wanted to stand up for climate, integrity, and women's rights. They were the three things that campaigned on. And so that was what they called, what the Australian media called, a teal bath when it came to a change in government. And so this was a change in doing things how it would normally be done. So you can see it in the change of governments. That's a really wonderful way to be able to see it. You see it in change of governments. It's changed already the energy of the country.
Yeah.
And how the rest of the planet sees Australia, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Vicky was celebrating for a week internally every time she thought of it. Was just this joyous feeling and a liberating feeling that there was a change.
Yeah.
And she is very good at feeling changes within the global consciousness with such markers. So that's why it's a good question.
Yeah.
Now, other markers, you see this in the acknowledgement of the Pride movement, in recognizing all sexualities. Yeah. You see this in the transgender movement, in recognizing all genders or no gender. It is not to say that it takes away from anyone's identifying or identity as a woman or as a man, but it's about allowing all identifications. Ultimately, spirit is androgynous. So when you understand that, you can understand that those who are coming through with different sexualities and different gender identification, they are showing you do not have to be limited by your bodies. That your nature is beyond gender. Even though you have both feminine and masculine within you.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that are coming through, and some of them are very misunderstood. Some of them are well recognized.
Yeah, yeah.
All of these is going to the core of what it is that is the consciousness of love. That each human being has a right to live as they define themselves.
With no judgment.
No judgment, with safety, because not all of them are safe.
Yeah.
With safety, with equal access to rights, equal expression of who they are, and an equal honoring of them as spiritual beings in human bodies, just as each and every one of you are.
Yeah.
So when you see that, every time you see a refugee seeking asylum, a child being freed from abuse, a person being homed when they were homeless, someone uplifted into employment when they were unemployed and in poverty. An honoring of the earth and an honoring of someone's labor, whether paid or unpaid. So that includes labor in the home and labor in caring for children. Then all of this raises this into the consciousness of love. And when we all look at the planet, there are pockets of you here, there, and everywhere who are moving into this more and more. So that is the other marker. As you move through all that was not love within you, and as you release it, you embody more and more of that consciousness of love within you. And as you do that and you fully awaken into that consciousness of love so that you embody and are love, then you are beacons of energy that share and spread a matrix across the planet within the global collective of this consciousness of love. And therefore, more and more of you can tap into that consciousness.
Lovely.
Yes.
Another thought that's just come to mind is your story from your life as Mary Magdalene. It's sort of been handed down through the centuries and lost a lot of its authenticity. Is there going to be more findings like Dead Sea Scrolls of the real truths of those times?
Let me say there is more to come. I know there are lost pages within my own gospel.
Yes.
There have been some who have attempted to channel those lost pages. What I would say on that is you can connect into the energy of it yourself. All is not lost in the spiritual realms. If you tap into the Akashic Records of the earth, it is all there. And so while it is lost within the physical realm, you can understand it is all there. So what will occur is that more and more will come through.
Okay.
And then ultimately, you may understand that it is not so much looking at what was written 2,000 years ago, but in connecting to my energy as Mary Magdalene. And you can do that through different writers, teachers, or directly through that gateway of your heart. You can receive initiations and activations, and you can tap into that energy and receive the consciousness of what was written or what was lost. And in that case, you may see it as a returning of that energy. This is why I am still here as Mary Magdalene. It is why I connect with people to still bring these messages through. Now, it is not to say that there is not value in what was said and done then. It is to say that there is still value in connecting to what is here now. But there will be more and more revelations, some of it channeled, some of it found. Not all will be found.
Okay.
And I do not say this to be pessimistic, but because it is not necessary. For there are other means to recover information. So truly not all is lost.
I just look at it from the human psyche where, you know, when you've got physical evidence, you can't discredit it then type thing. And while people like Vicky and myself and others, I think it's Megan Watterson's writing a lot around you. There's quite a few out there, but some of the stories don't cross over, and I think that's just the way they've been channeled. It's the human maybe getting in the way of some of the details. The energy and the love is always carried through.
Yes, it is.
That is for sure. And I just thought just it'd be lovely to find a few more scrolls or something like that to just give that little bit more potency to your story.
Let me say that even if all the scrolls were to be found, there would still be people who would deny me and deny what is written in them.
Yeah.
For what occurred then to have them banned and hidden would occur still today. And those who attempt to ban them in a different way. And so there are still many who are not ready to receive the fullness of them. And let me say that they were written at a time for the context in which they were written in.
Yeah.
So there's still more to come through. And this is where I still have work to do.
Yeah.
In supporting these messages to come through with a modern language in a modern day context.
No, that's wonderful to hear, and I mean, just us having these conversations is also moving towards that, and I do feel that there is a lot of information out there that has been found and re-hidden till such time that it resurfaces again.
Yes. The consciousness of what has been hidden has been undeniable. It is why lives have been lost, documents destroyed, property destroyed, and yet the consciousness is still here 2,000 years later.
Yeah.
What I will say to the differences within the channeled writings or channeled anything, this is where you may connect within and connect the core essence of the message and do not be hung up on the details. See what is truth for you. Do not battle with anyone about what is truth. For it is not only is it not necessary, it goes counter to the whole purpose of what it is there for. It is there to share love. It is there to return information from the past.
Yeah.
Some of that information, as I said, still held within their Akashic Records, or all of that information. And it is dependent upon the individual channeler, their human filters. And let me say it is impossible to remove all of them, because the mind is constructed in a way that it is based on the experiences that each individual has, and you cannot take them out from the brain. You can become clearer and clearer channels in receiving and transmitting more clearly and more purely what we are transmitting, but it's still from within the context of your human experience. So it is why that there are some things that we could not and would not share with you, for it is not in your best and highest good. It is beyond what you could hold within the human mind. So in that context, do not feel that you are being diminished in any way by not being able to connect to a channeled message. Let us say not everything is fully in truth. Some may speak in my name that is not my truth.
Yes.
So you need to connect with me yourselves and feel. It's the only way you can. Feel what is true and what is connected to your truth. And know that your truth may evolve as you evolve. And as you evolve, more and more will be revealed to you.
Lovely, because I know myself when I'm doing my channeled writing, like some days it comes through and it's like, wow, I know I did not write that. And there'll be words now going, I have to get the dictionary out to see what that means.
Vicky does that.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, I haven't heard that word before. So and the message is just, yeah, spot on for what the question was and a way you would never have thought of it. But then there's other times and I write and I think, no, I think my ego's taken over there, or like, so whether that's just because some days you're more tired than others.
Yes.
But I must say, you sort of, when you know it's golden, you know.
Yes, you know.
When you're writing, and then when you look at it, you go, well, I'm just going to just let that sit for a while and see if it means anything to me, type thing. So
yes.
Yeah. It's the same for us, I suppose, when we're reading other people's work or diving into other people's work, same thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it's about the volume of energy that is being transmitted and coming through. And you're right, in other times it is more how much human is in the mix.
Yeah. Okay, well, I could keep going. Do you want to keep going, or where are we at?
I would say time-wise, it is time for me to withdraw my energies. So while I could, and I know you could continue to to talk and to chat, know that this conversation is not ended. We will continue this conversation. There is still so much more within this conversation. My parting message is to not get caught up in the details, to commit to yourselves on the raising of the consciousness of love. Ultimately, this is the work that Yeshua and I started as Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and what we as Sananda and Lady Nada continue, and as Mary Magdalene. So whether you connect with me as Mary Magdalene or as Lady Nada, it matters not, and will often depend upon your own lineage and connection with me. And for each and every one of you, committing to the spiritual path, in other words, to connect with spirit and to be of spirit and to bring through spirit in your human bodies. I commend you. I love you. I am with you. And let me say that my love is not predicated on whether you're spiritual or not. Let that sink in, for that is not your value or your merit, but only a description of what you are doing and how you're expressing who you are. So let me bring through a heart transmission of love to each and every one of you on this solstice day, and to the whole planet and the human collective, to every bird, flower, leaf, blade of grass, tree, animal, insect, and to Gaia herself. We thank her for offering up her body to allow this human experience to unfold in the physical realms. And so it is.
Thank you, thank you. Whew. Maybe some water.
My lips are all dry. Yes. Wow, time just seems to fly.
It sure does.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I know the keepers are wanting to come through before Sananda does.
Great.
So
they set us up so beautifully then.
They did. They did. All right. Let me bring them through. We are pleased you found that to be so.
Very successful.
Yes, we agree with you.
There went places I had no idea we would go, and I didn't need my question list at all.
It's funny how that works out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But you may keep them for another time.
The essence came through anyway, just better than I could have asked for. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So we know we said we'd come in to introduce Sananda. And we know in some ways he does not need introduction. You've already explained who he is. And Vicky has shared how she connected with him. And let us repeat what she said, is that she differentiated him as the Yeshua energy and as Sananda. And it was earlier in the year that he told her that she need not call him Yeshua anymore, for she was connecting into the Sananda energy. Now, it does not mean that connecting into the Yeshua energy is wrong at all. That is what was right for her. I noticed it took years to get to that point for her. So do not adopt what is right for someone else and what is right for you. Feel what is right for you. Yet you get to the opportunity to connect to the Sananda energy. And this is the greatest gift that you can experience, so that you can connect with his energy, therefore attune to his energy, and therefore become familiar with his energy. As of course, he continues to have a large role in bringing through the energy of Christ consciousness upon the planet. That does not change, regardless of his name. And therefore, we are happy to introduce your next divine guest as Sananda.
Thank you.
Drink of water. Hello, dear ones.
Hello and welcome.
Welcome to you. I will say first that while Vicky described my energy as blue, she's now experiencing me as gold. And that is, of course, the gold of Christ's consciousness. And that is the energy I wish to bring through, and is why I took up the call, as you say, to come through, to be with you, to share with you, to commune with you, to overall connect with you all. And allow a transmission of the heart throughout this conversation. So there will be an energy that will be transmitted throughout this conversation. And Vicky's feeling this in her heart, and she's sitting back so that she can allow this to flow through. So I am ready to answer your questions. It may take Vicky a little more time to speak through, as this is occurring at the same time.
Okay, well, welcome. Where to start? I think at the moment we're witnessing a more of a revival of hearing about yourself and Mary Magdalene's, specifically around your time as Yeshua 2,000 odd years ago. And I'm just wondering, why now are you coming forward probably stronger?
Yes. I will say there is a correction still to be made when it comes to my message and the understanding of my messages. There has been an establishment of churches in my name who do not always speak for me and do not always emulate what I had chosen to offer as an example of a way of being love upon the planet. And that was a way of loving everyone, regardless of who they were. Were they leper? Were they prostitute? Were they a tax person? Were they whoever they were? Regardless of their name or label or condition. That was my greatest teaching. And you are here still on the planet debating how you treat one another. Still.
Yeah.
And so here you have chosen to utilize the structures of churches to differentiate how you treat those who belong to your church and those who belong to another.
Yeah.
In that very example is the opposite of what I sought to teach and did teach, but each will accept that teaching according to their own consciousness. And so when you can understand the consciousness of love, you can understand that everyone is included in that, regardless of what they believe in. They do not have to accept my teachings to be offered a place in the kingdom of heaven. That was not the purpose at all.
No.
And to then use that as an excuse to other them, in other words, to push them away as different from yourselves. My greatest teaching was the offering of love and forgiveness of all, for everyone, so that each can be brought back into the fold. That was the offering of the prodigal son. each person, each lamb that returns to the flock is welcomed back in. No questions asked, no judgment, but welcomed through the arms of love. And so much is still taught in my name that was not representative, is not representative of my message and my teachings, and certainly not of the energy of Christ consciousness.
And I think, as being from the Essene community all those years ago, that I do carry that that energy of not judging others. It's been a very strong point, I feel, in my life. But I do feel that on the flip side of that, I've been very judgmental of myself.
Wow. That is the other side of the coin. What is interesting is that for some people, what they judge in themselves, they judge in others. Others, like you, take it in not judgment of others, judgment of self. This is also not helpful, and also not in the energy of the consciousness of love or Christ consciousness, to dismiss the self as unimportant. What the difference is, what someone would do who's expressing opposite to you, is where they make the self of supreme importance. This is where those who seek to have human power over, to control and dominate, do. And this is the mirror opposite of that, where you have experienced in your life those who would dominate. And so you have allowed the diminishment of your energies. So therefore, there is not the balance within yourself in expressing love to yourself as well as love to another. In other words, you cannot have the sacred marriage within you if you cannot care for yourself in the same way.
Most definitely. And I think that's what a lot of us have gone through, and learning from it and disentangling from DNA stuff we've carried, and from our life experiences, and realizing that the judgment of self is something we can undo.
And let me also say that people have used my teaching of forgiveness to mean only the forgiveness of the other. And the way it is sometimes shared and propagated within churches, it is forgiveness of the other at the expense of oneself. That cannot be the case. True forgiveness is freedom. Freedom for oneself from the energies of another and the pain and the hurt that they caused you. There is a healing within forgiveness. Forgiveness does not harm you for the benefit of the other. It does not mean treat me the same way again, thank you very much. Because I will forgive you. That is not forgiveness. That is submission. I do not teach submission. How hard is it to forgive oneself?
Hard.
It's
very hard,
when you are expressing in that way. So forgiveness must be also of oneself and what you deem as your mistakes and your own transgressions. And so therefore forgiveness is freeing yourself of any judgment, of any perceived mistakes and transgressions that you have made.
And recognizing and recognizing it as an experience.
Yes, as an experience, it can also be an opportunity to make amends in some way.
Yeah.
So if you're beating yourself up through judgment of something you have done, it is far better to reach ultimately forgiveness of yourself by making amends for what you have done. Now, it may be a simple apology. It may be actions that you need to take to restore trust and any breaches of faith. That is far more productive than the beating yourself up mentally. Then you will go truly into an understanding of forgiveness that is true to what I taught.
So just on the back of that, like a lot of us are waking. Sugar. You're right, mate. Poor little Maxie just got his toe caught in my jumper. Many of us are waking up to our lineage of being with the Essenes all that long ago. A lot of people don't realise that they were. They might wake up to it or not. But what would you like to say to all of us that were with you around the time of your last ministry on earth? What would you like to say to us now to help us move forward and keep moving forward in what we started all those years ago?
First, I will say not all were Essenes, or not all can have been Essenes. Some may have been Essenes in different lifetimes and not in the same time as my ministry.
Yeah.
But what I will say, whether you were a Roman soldier, a Pharisee, an Essene within the Roman court, regardless of what role you played, you will hold memories of this time. And these memories, some can be both loving and painful, for others traumatic, for others simple, and depends on your soul lineage. In other words, what you experienced in that lifetime, what your connection was to me, whether proximal, as in close, or distal, as in the other side of the world, for example. It's still, that energy of that time still carries a resonance. Now, for those who do truly have an Essene heritage, an Essene lineage, it is the time to wake up to it now. For many of you have experienced a silencing of the voice since that time. For the Essene community diminished after my crucifixion and ascension because of the persecution and for many reasons. Ultimately, the purpose of the ministry was complete. Yet it carried an energy for those who remained after my crucifixion and ascension that many of you still carry to this day. And while there has and was a suppression of, as the keeper said, half the story, not just Mary Magdalene's, but of mine, then those who carry the Essene lineage could not fully express, for you held the truth in your hearts and in your very DNA. So know that now that the truth can come and resurface, there is a new reawakening into this Essene lineage. And many of you will discover that it has seemed that you have experienced many lifetimes of suppression and difficulty.
Yeah.
And now is the time to heal and release these lifetimes and reawaken into your wisdom and to the truth that we held as a broader community. And there is a network across the globe. And you tend to incarnate together.
Okay.
So you can find each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay. How was it to work with Mary, your beloved? Like, I just can't imagine how wonderful it must have been to have the support of each other in that massive mission that you've pulled off.
What I will say is that I could not have done what I did without her.
Mm.
And I could not have done what I did without the broader scene community.
Yes.
And this is the broader truth to all, not just masters, but all who are leaders or deemed as special in some way. Usually there's a community of support around them. Usually they are not achieving it in isolation.
Yeah.
The energies that she held and brought through to support me in my work has not been acknowledged to a mere fraction of what she did.
Mm.
And yet, when it has been acknowledged, it has been diminished, and those have been threatened by it. And so therefore, I express my appreciation for all who shared in my ministry and in my work, for all of you, every one of you who shared in this, contributed to the whole and changed the world forevermore.
And it was a huge change, because when we consider how young you were at the crucifixion and like you spent many years traveling and learning from different masters around you, like your ministry was only so many years long. Like it wasn't that long to make such an impact.
Yes.
That it's still reverberating forward now.
That was by design.
Yeah.
I prepared, Mary Magdalene prepared, and the community around us prepared. Community for generations and for us for lifetimes for that moment. And you're right, there was a sharing with other masters around the globe. And yet it was only when I was ready and the time was ripe that I began my ministry. And yet the power of that brought it to a swift conclusion. They could not have someone like me walking around preaching what I did. That was a direct threat to their empiricism, as Mary Magdalene used the word, of their empires and their power and the control and domination before they needed to stop me. That was always going to be the plan. It was always going to be the vehicle of my ascension and of my message.
So you mentioned other lifetimes leading up to it. Is there any thing you want to talk to about those other lifetimes? Like
not specifically. What I will say is, do not look back, look forward. While there is an interest in previous lifetimes, may you understand that each contributed to the whole, and therefore see me as the whole of Sananda. So I'm not even only the lifetime as Yeshua, but a sum of all of those parts, and yet I'm greater than the sum of those parts. And so therefore we can speak of what am I doing and what am I moving into. There is always more. more to this energy, more to that which is of spirit, more to my own personal evolution, even as I support the evolution of the planet. And I understand the interest, know that there are many lifetimes for me to get to where I was and where I am. And so forgive yourselves for how long it takes you.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was going, like we're all on this same type of journey.
Yes. Yes. And each of you, every one of you is at a different part and phase of your journey, your soul's journey. And like was said, is not a race, is just a beautiful and perfect unfolding of all that is spirit.
Okay. I was going to ask, is there any misconceptions in your life as Yeshua you would like to address in relation to your goal on earth? But I think we've kind of been covering that. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
What I will add is that what we did is still bearing fruit.
Yeah.
It is still unfolding, still bearing fruit. And yet the mantle has been in some ways passed to Mary Magdalene to continue that piece of what is unfolding, even as I move into the anchoring of the Christ consciousness on a planetary level. That unfolding continues. And we are still divine partners in this work together. And we work within a broader team, if you will, of masters and light beings and angelic beings in supporting the planet in its ascension. In other words, in moving into the light. Do not overly focus on yourselves as being perfected beings, for this is what some will tell you: you must be perfect in order to ascend. Do not focus on ascension. Focus on what is now before you. Much of it will be less than perfect. But that is the grist for the mill. That is where the growth and evolution is. For if you overly focus on being perfect and on a state of perfection, the human mind is designed to try to eradicate that from your consciousness, and you'll be less and less aware of what is imperfect within you, so that you will become, ironically, more controlled by the ego as you seek that perfection. So again, forgive yourselves for being perfectly imperfect. And know that this strive for perfection is what has many human beings led astray. Whether it's the perfect genes, the perfect race, the perfect babies, the perfect mothers, the perfect fathers, the perfect workers. All of that leads to distortion.
And judgment of ourselves again.
Yes. Only Father, Mother, God is perfect. The rest, there is divine perfection in the perfect unfolding of your evolution. There is the perfection. You don't need to seek an end state of perfection. That does not serve you, dear ones. It denies your humanity, your humanness. you will come to your mastery of your humanity, of your humanness in due course.
Mm-hmm.
That is the natural outcome of all that you're unfolding through. And yet what I will say is that when you can let go of how imperfect, how messy, how complex, how much it can all be, you can accept and allow it and forgive it and see it as it is.
It's a lighter way of living, a more joyous way of living.
Yes, dear one. There was a reason there were stories of me being with children.
Mm-hmm.
For I loved their perfected states. It is not to say that you lose your perfection, you will perfect as children, then lose your perfection. What I mean is they were perfectly free to be themselves.
Yeah.
Free to be joyous and free of the adult human mind, the logical, rational mind that puts constrictions upon you, on your joy and on your freedom. And so the child up until 7 and 8 is the freest, most joyous, most perfected in that freedom. Now, that is not to say there are not children who are mistreated, abused, neglected, but children in their true state are free and joyous and can be who they really are, not who they think they must be. For what you are doing as adults when you're trying to reach a state of perfection is try to be who you think you must be instead of being who you are. That is how you evolve. That is how you return to your divine nature. The journey is a return to you, not to this end state that someone would tell you you must get to. Not what you think masters should be like and act like, but through your natural impulses of allowing love to flow through you. For each and every one of you express differently. No one of us masters are the same, yet we have all achieved mastery and yet are still moving through our mastery into more. So not one of you are going to be the same. So return to yourselves, dear one. Be as you are, for your true state is perfect. For you are created in the image and likeness of the Creator, and you have that perfected state within you, and you have access to it. Do not move away from it, from an idea or a thought of how you should be.
So much to talk about there. And I totally agree. Like I do a workshop and I get people to ask them who here can draw, and everyone go, no, I can't with adults. And then I go, well, at what age did you get told you couldn't draw anymore? Like we all brought home our paintings at 5 and were so proud of what we, painted of our families or the rainbows and that sort of thing. Like at what stage do we realize that, it had to be a perfected art, our paintings, and we stopped doing those.
Yes.
So I actually use that as a way of bringing in people looking at belief mindset and that sort of thing. And I too, I love getting back with the kids and the golden nuggets that come out of their mouths at times. It's just joyous. Yeah, that innocent.
The drawing and the painting is a good example of this. Now, speaking of children, Vicky will have to pick up hers very soon.
Yes.
So I will wrap up my messages to you. I know that we will have opportunities again. So this is not goodbye.
It's hello.
This is a continuation, an opening into your connection with me as Sananda. And what I wish to share before we complete this transmission the heart truly is the gateway. How open is your heart to receive? How open is your heart to go within? You may be seeking into the heavens, and yet we are right here. It is why there's been a transmission of the heart in this conversation. Know my energies of love. And I love each and every one of you. Regardless of any mistakes you have made along the way. Even in misperceptions of my teachings. When you love yourselves as another, you treat your neighbor as yourself, yourself as your neighbor. And we are not speaking of a literal neighbor, but every person on this planet is your neighbor. Treat everyone you meet as if they were yourself and how you would wish to be treated. And that is with love. And this is why Christ consciousness and the consciousness of love includes self-love as a fundamental part of it. For how can you treat another the way you treat yourself if you treat yourself with judgment and condemnation? So forgive, do not judge, see all with love. And no, I would not ask you to submit yourselves to another. If you wish to, you may open yourselves to us and connect with us and surrender to the energy that is flowing through. This is not a submission. This is not passive. It is an active allowing of this energy flow. And so to all of you and to all of humanity, the planet, everyone everywhere, across the cosmos, and all beings, we're connected through the energy of love. And none may tear it asunder. Acknowledge this connection and you will return to who you really are. And walk the path that I walked upon. And so it is. Not yet back. Wow. That's a difficult energy to come back from. It's so amazing. And so big. I'm not going to attempt to fully come back. I'm just going to bring the keepers through. How did you enjoy that conversation, dear ones?
Wonderful. I didn't get to thank our guests, so I'm thanking them now.
They have not gone. They're still here. We're pleased that you were pleased.
Oh, look, it's just so much golden consciousness in there that it will take a few listens to.
Yes.
A lot of listens to absorb all of that we've been shared today. Yeah.
Take your time with it. Savor it. And then come back to it, because you will receive something else highly. Yes. We are pleased.
Very pleased, very pleased. And I just think there's just so much information. There's activations in that. There's so much love.
So much love.
And teachings.
So much love. And teachings, you're right. And the returning of wisdom that was lost.
And for me, it was a matter of I wanted to be so careful of not standing on people's belief systems and that, but at the same time bringing forth more truth to to it all, to the whole spiritual way, the whole way we are here on this planet and in the cosmos.
That is why we all check who will be watching and listening and who will come to this message, yet also within the divine plan, what is the time to be revealed? It is a careful unfolding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
So we will complete this session and wrap it energetically as a whole, as a complete transmission of love, of service to you and to all of humanity. And we give thanks to you both for bringing these through. And we give thanks to every one of you who comes to this message to receive. For each of you play a role, an indispensable role in the grand unfolding of this divine plan. So from all of us, in the heart of the divine, we send you all much love.
We receive that love and we offer it back in return. Thank you.
Well, I can't believe it's been almost 3 hours.
I think you're going to need to be doing some grounding today.
Before I drive?
Yes. Yeah.
I might take a crystal with me to ground, because I want to be able to sit back and process.
Maybe barefoot out on the grass for a minute too before you go.
Yeah, and the sun is beautiful today.
Well, thank you so much.
Reminder to everyone, drink lots of water, and for each and every one of you to ground as well. And as always, happy to share any questions, comments, thoughts that you have along the way. And if you have any questions you would like answered in future Soul Sisters channeling episodes, let us know. I'm excited to see what's coming next, but I'm so full of gratitude for what came through today.
It's been a huge couple of days. Solstice.
Yes.
Solstice and then this gathering.
Yeah. So I'll say solstice blessings to you all. And certainly much love from me, and I know from you, Kerry.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And
it's a wrap.
Farewell till the
next
22nd
time
of the 7th.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is that right? That will be episode 7.
It will be, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. The 7s are coming through with the 2s.
Yeah.
All right. Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.